I am a woman, and this story is mine. Not to gain sympathy, not to complain, but to finally speak the truth I carried quietly for years. When I got married, I didn't just marry a man. I married an entire family, a joint family. Everyone told me I was lucky. They said, "You'll never be alone. There will always be people around you." What they didn't tell me was how lonely you can feel when you are surrounded by people who don't really see you. In the beginning, I tried very hard to fit in. I smiled even when I was tired. I agreed even when I didn't understand. I listened even when no one listened to me. I thought this was love. I thought this was respect. I thought this was how a good woman proves herself. Every morning, I woke up before everyone else. Not because I loved mornings, but because responsibility doesn't wait. The kitchen became my world. Everyone's taste mattered except mine. Everyone's mood mattered except mine. If food was good, it was normal. If food was not perfect, it was my fault. In a joint family, your mistakes are public, but your efforts are invisible. I slowly realized that my name was being replaced. I was no longer called by who I was. I was the daughter-in-law, the wife, the one who should understand. I was expected to adjust because I was new, then expected to adjust because I was younger, then expected to adjust because I was a woman. Whenever I tried to speak, I was reminded of sacrifices. We all adjusted. This is how families work. Why are you creating problems? So I learned to swallow my words. I learned to stay quiet. Silence became my survival. But silence has a price. At night, when everyone slept peacefully, my thoughts kept me awake. I questioned myself constantly. Am I weak? Am I ungrateful? Am I asking for too much? Slowly, I started believing that wanting space, respect, and peace was selfish. In a joint family, a woman is expected to give without counting, bend without breaking, and stay calm without rest. There were days I felt invisible. I could be in the same room, yet unheard. Decisions were made about my life without asking me. Where we would go, what we would do, how I should behave. Everything decided for me in the name of family. I wasn't allowed to be angry, I wasn't allowed to be tired, and I was definitely not allowed to say no. The hardest part was not the work. The hardest part was losing myself while trying to keep everyone else comfortable. I stopped doing things I loved. I stopped dreaming out loud. I stopped recognizing the woman I once was. One day, while looking at my reflection, I didn't recognize my own eyes. They looked tired, not just physically, but emotionally exhausted. That day, I realized something painful but important. I was disappearing. Joint family systems are not always cruel, but they can become suffocating when one person keeps giving and no one keeps asking how she feels. I didn't suddenly become brave. Courage didn't come overnight. It came slowly, painfully. First, I allowed myself to feel hurt without guilt. Then, I allowed myself to think that maybe I mattered too. I started speaking, not loudly, not angrily, but honestly. At first, my voice shook. People didn't like it. They said I'd changed. They said I'd become difficult. But what they really meant was that I was no longer silent. When a woman stops suffering quietly, the world calls her rebellious. I set small boundaries, very small. Saying no sometimes, asking before deciding, taking time for myself. These things felt illegal at first. I felt guilty for choosing myself. But slowly, I felt lighter. I understood that being respectful doesn't mean being powerless. Being part of a family doesn't mean losing your identity. And being patient doesn't mean accepting emotional neglect. Joint family systems demand compromise. But compromise should never cost a woman her dignity. I am still part of that family. I didn't run away. I didn't break relationships. I just stopped breaking myself. I learned that my silence was teaching the next generation how women should live. And I didn't want my daughters to learn that lesson. Today I speak when something hurts. I rest when I'm tired. I choose peace without apology. Some people understand me now. Some never will. And that's okay. Because I finally understand myself. If you are a woman living in a joint family and you feel tired all the time, not in your body, but in your soul, this story is for you. You are not weak. You are not dramatic. You are not wrong for wanting respect. You don't need to disappear to keep a family together. And if this story felt like your own, if these words touched a place you never spoke about, then stay connected. Subscribe, because many more untold women's stories are waiting to be heard. And maybe, together, we can finally stop suffering in silence.